Game loaded.
Hi guys, it's a little introduction. This is part 1 of a 2-hour episode. I've broken them in 2 bits because it was too long and we had some technical difficulties. This first part is about character creation and the beginning of an adventure. In next episode, we'll be talking about the adventure itself and the aftermath. So I hope you enjoy it. Also, the music is by Soundhammer and the link to it will be below in the comments. Hi, and welcome to an edition of Lessons Learned with your host, Rafael Pinheiro. Welcome to the Matshquad community podcast, community created around Adam Koebel, a game designer of Dungeon World and game master for Roleplay 20 and Roleplay series. You can find him at Skinny Ghost on Twitter and Adam Koebel on YouTube and Twitch. And with me today, I have Callumborn, Gludipow, and Scary DM on our roundtable. Guys want to tell everybody who you are?
Yeah, I'm Callumborn. I'm planning on going to college this fall, studying game design and philosophy. And I've been a huge fan of Adam ever since he started Swansong. And I'm also a huge fan of role-playing games in general.
I am Gludipow. I am the co-host of the Lessons Learned Mass Effect podcast. I am actually rather new to the tabletop role-playing game scenario. I am currently in college for creative writing and creative writing in media, specifically games. And I have a large hobby in psychology and writing in general.
Name's Scaridium, and I'm a scientist with a focus on neurobiology and psychology and medicine. And I'm also a writer primarily of nonfiction, and I've been playing tabletop games for almost a decade now, on and off.
So that is today's roundtable for Matshquad Community Podcast. Gludipow, as she mentioned, is new to the table side of RPG. She's played plenty of computer RPGs, including, of course, a Mass Effect video game series, which we co-host and talk about a lot in our other podcast.
I'll just say it right now. I am a huge BioWare fangirl.
Which helps a lot because we're going to be talking about the table side of RPGs, which have informed a lot of BioWare games over a decade, really. We're going to do a sort of a simulated run, character creation, and a short adventure. There'll be no dice roll, so you won't see any dice rolling or stats. We're simply going to talk about the rundown of how you create characters and run a short adventure, demonstrating hopefully the sort of cooperative world building and cooperative approach to role playing that systems like Apocalypse World and Dungeon World and Fate system showcase. So let's start with a rundown of how you create a character. Let's start with the 4 basic classes and races. The 2, in the fantasy setting like Dungeons and Dragons and Dungeon World, in Western style fantasy, you tend to have these common classes and the common races. We're going to keep it to 4 of them, and our roundtable is going to select one of each and create their characters. So we're going to start with the races. The standard fantasy races run from the gamut from humans through dwarves, elves, and your halflings or / gnomes. Your humans are your average character, not too strong, not too weak, well balanced, with very few bonuses or special abilities outside of whatever their class can give them. Your dwarves tend to be short, stout, strong characters that can take a lot of punishment. They tend to skew away from magic, but depending on the system that you're using, and in our system we're going to keep it open, our mythical system here, so they can use magic if they want, but they tend to skew toward to being clerics and warriors, and following the sort of Tolkien-esque idea of greedy dwarves, they also sometimes tend to be thieves as well. You have your elves, which are your long-lived Fae-like class. They like their magics, they like their bows, they like their long swords and other elegant weapons. Speed, agility is their thing, as well as being obnoxious with everyone else, including other elves. And then you have your tiny classes, such as your gnomes or halflings, based mostly on hobbits. They can do almost anything, but they tend to be shorter, so they prefer to be sneaky and thievery-like, so they tend to prefer sneaking around and being lock breakers and the like. So now that we presented our races, there's many more in many systems, of course, but we're just keeping to the basics here. We also have our classes, and I think Gludipow probably will find these even more familiar. You have your warriors or fighters. Basically, they're the people who step up to the front ranks and whack things to death with a sword or any other kind of weapon. Although sometimes they can also have ranged weapons. You can have your rogues, which are somewhat similar in many ways and play similar to fighters when it comes to just attacking things, but they have a range of skills, allow them to scout, to open doors, explore, and of course disable traps in dungeons and the like. Then you have your magic using classes, which is more, the difference between them tends to be more in flavor, right? And following the sort of the blueprint of Dungeons and Dragons, you have your divine spellcasters, clerics, and the like, which tend to be healers and support characters, while mages or wizards take their power from somewhere else. It could be a magical field that surrounds everything in the world, some kind of very specific ability or magical substance, and they can also tend to help other party members, but their strength really relies on delivering a lot of damage to area, and also their knowledge of arcane and secretive stuff. Basically, they're walking libraries when needed. So these are the 4 classes in general. There's a little more things we can talk about them. So starting with Caliborn, do you have any idea of what character you're going to build?
Well, do we know anything about the setting that we're in besides the races and classes?
We're going to start basically from the bottom up. That we're going to do the world building from the bottom up, start with characters and stuff like that. But we can infer that this is in fact a standard fantasy setting, Western fantasy, Anglo-French, late medieval style fantasy game.
Okay.
Go on a quest, slay monsters, get loot.
Yes.
Sweet. Yeah, I think I want to buck the trend a little bit, and I want to try and play a halfling warrior.
Does this halfling warrior have a name?
Yeah, let's call him Frollo Loudmouth.
What?
And what
Veto!
What makes Frollo such a loudmouth? Or is this fact he's sort of an ironic name?
Well, it's his family name.
Mm.
Yeah, he often gets made fun of, even among halflings who already have silly names. Yeah, he can be a loudmouth, but if anything, it's from his battle cry that he actually exemplifies his name.
We move on to Gludipow. You thought of an idea for a character?
Yeah, I did. It's based on a character that I had actually originally made in D&D. I was thinking an elven rogue.
And does he or she or they have a name?
She does. I was thinking along the lines of Zalera Glenvaris.
And what does Zalera is like?
Zalera. Z.
Z is Z.
Yeah, Zalera.
Zalera. Okay. And how is she like?
Well, as a rogue, she spends a lot of her time alone. So she's not used to being in the company of other people, big groups. So she can sometimes come across as being a little aloof or antisocial. I think she's kind of good-hearted deep down. She just doesn't know how to approach people. So I guess chaotic good would probably be a good character description for her.
Mm-hmm. Good thing you brought chaotic good, because again, in Dungeons and Dragons, we do have what's called alignments. We're going to assume, unless Scaridium bucks a trend, that you are fairly heroic. That is, you don't go out of your way to harm people, at least innocent people. Of course, that leaves a lot of room for interpretation, so I'm going to go like that. But yeah, alignments are very common in Dungeons and Dragons type games, but many other games tend to either skew them or ignore them altogether. The reason for it is that it tends to have to sort of serve as a straitjacket, which is ironic because the reason why, in for example, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, which is sort of the game that has really dominated what Dungeons and Dragons has been since the 1980s, use more types of alignment in order to sort of open up what you could do as a character. But because of the way systems tend to work in the sort of older style of role-playing game with spells and other situations, they tended to be much of a straitjacket. But we're going to use alignment as you used it, as sort of as a guide, of sort of a shorthand for her approach to the world, which is usually what alignment should be used for, but it's not obligatory. Anything else you want to add about your character?
Well, I did have a question about rogues. You mentioned that they can, pick locks and traps and things like that. I know that, or I believe I read at one point that in some versions of D&D, a rogue will sometimes have an animal companion. Is that a thing in this one?
If you want to have any animal companion, you can. Yeah, no problem.
Sure, because I was thinking, well, go ahead.
There are 3 big archetypes of what rogues end up being. There's the more assassin-based character who is much more about getting into a place and killing people as efficiently as possible. Then there's the much more traditional, I am all about sneaking, all about stealing, trying to be as invisible and stealthy as possible in every way. And then there's the arcane trickster, which is about learning all these weird little magical tricks. And that's where you get the more playful sort of rogues who get some magical abilities, where they're more about teasing people or getting sleight of hand to get what they want. And those are also usually the ones that'll have little magical familiars and such.
Okay.
So yeah, you can have.
Right, I wasn't thinking a magical companion, more like.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are magical, some of them are not.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was thinking about having her have because I mentioned she was a rogue and wandered the forest and things like that. There was a word for it in the D&D book that I remember reading. I can't remember the word for it. But a
familiar?
No. For rogues that wandered the woods and things like that.
Oh, more like a ranger.
Ranger, thank you.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was thinking of her being kind of so I was thinking of giving her a falcon companion or something.
Okay, yeah. For the purists out there, you might say, oh, but rangers are supposed to be part of the fighter class. Well, again, we're not getting deeply into all the type of classes, so there's always going to be a crossover. And in this case, yes, I will allow Gludipow to have her ranger rogue character, because why not? We're going with the flow here.
Yeah, that's the great thing about tabletop games, is you can do whatever you want.
And does the falcon have a name?
Eldar
the falcon. Oh, okay. So we move in to the last character, Scaridium. Do you have an idea? You came up with something?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be doing an elven warrior. He's definitely super old for elves. So he actually looks older, but he's still incredibly fit. And he always just walks around in the barest sort of suit he can get away with. And also carrying around a massive greatsword. And his whole thing is just trying to experience the pleasures of life while he still can. So it's very bucking the trend of elves as very stoic. His whole thing has become, let's indulge in as much of the experience of life as we can.
Oh no, oh my gosh, I can see the clash between him and Solera already.
And does his grizzled, for an elf, elven warrior have a name?
Yeah. Let's do Samathes Thundaris. Thundaris. Thunder, yes.
Okay, Thundaris. Samathes is fine. Anything else about Samathes that you want to throw into the ring right now?
No, I think that sums him up about good enough for now.
So we have
Elfie man whore.
What?
A lover of wine, women, and song. Basically, that's what it's asking. Yeah. So we have 2 warriors and a rogue in our party, 2 elves and a halfling. Let us put you in a position where you can start the adventure. This village lies at the edge of a vast forest. It is the intersection of 3 roads. One goes east to west, which is the main road, and one that flows into the village from the north. These roads converge in the village, and they go further east to a great port city. It was also a market town. The farmers here are a mixture of woodsmen, trappers, hunters, and of course people who have cleared some of the land for farming. To the north, east, and west are rolling hills, and to the south, the beginning of this great forest. Are any of the elves from this forest, or are you not forest-dwelling elves at all?
Mine would be a forest-dwelling elf.
Is she from the area? Yeah?
What were the races that were primarily in this village?
It's mostly human, with some elves that visit, and of course the occasional halflings.
If it's primarily human, she might not be from this forest. It depends upon like how expansive of a forest it might be. Maybe she lives in the forest.
It's pretty large, yeah.
Yeah, so it's possible. Like, I don't think she would live like really close to this village. Like, she might come here for supplies, and that would be about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think mine was probably a member of the aristocracy a long time ago, and what led him to this life was eventually becoming fed up with sort of like what was the traditional elven stoicism, especially for like someone who was noble born. So I think he's just been wandering ever since he left that life behind.
And just happens to be on the village at this time.
Yeah, for whatever reasons.
On this season, whatever fits his fancy. Frollo is a halfling, and they're a significant membership of halflings in this particular village. Are you a member of that? Is your family a member of this community?
I don't think so. Frollo's on a quest of sorts. He wants to like bring the humble ways of the halfling to the rest of the world, and like carve out a safe place for halflings to settle down.
Well, you find yourself in this. I'm going to ask you guys, do you come up with a good name for this forest side village? You guys have any suggestions?
Give me a minute.
I could just do like Willowbrook for now. Just incredibly standard.
Okay, because I was thinking something like Tamsy Town or something like that.
Yeah, we can do Lillybrook. That's fine. There's a small river right by the village. That supplies water to the fields, etc. So you find yourselves in a hazy spring afternoon in the local watering hole, a pub that has right now, because the temperatures are warming up, as the farmers come from the fields and the trappers and some of the loggers finish the day, they go to this pub. But outside, there are basically tables that are upturned, barrels, and some stools and the like. And people are talking and joshing and, saying hi to people that are coming down to the main road and, closing shop. Eventually, the gathering will move indoors, most of it. But right now, they're enjoying the couple of hours of sunlight and warmth before it gets a bit chilly as spring sort of retreats for the night. You find yourselves in, among this crowd, whether you're resting or you were doing something else in the village during the day and just found yourself in the area. Frollo, are you doing anything particular here or just simply lounging around?
In the evening, I think I would be sitting in whatever local tavern or inn and downing a large mug of mead that's about as big as me.
So yeah, you're starting early. That soon enough people will move inside the watering hole, and which is actually literally the name of the pub. So you started early, and people have, especially because there's quite a bit of halflings here. They're not the majority, but there are enough halflings there. There's a good mix of humans and halflings here. And so conversation sort of flows very easily between the two groups. And usually most of the groups are mixed. You're probably sitting, in one of the stools in front of one of these empty cask of ale that is being used as sort of makeshift tables. And so people are eating some cheese and have some other, small pieces of food, etc. Maybe some bread to go with their ale. And maybe a little bit of wine as well. Celera, right? Celera. What, are you in the group, or are you approaching the group, or just passing through?
I believe that Celera would be going through the town, on another errand to gather supplies, being careful not to get any human attention drawn to herself. So she'd be wearing her cloak and, trying not to meet anybody's eye, and just gathering supplies as fast as she can to get back to her outpost.
Yeah. Celera, you do know the other characters, Frollo and Sumathis, if I said that correctly. But you keep to yourself. You have sort of worked with them before. They clearly stand out, and so they ironically became more approachable to you. There was a fellow elf that you sort of made the mistake of approaching the first time around, and then you saw the halfling, and he seemed to be quite friendly, if not, a bit quieter than most. So you do know them, and you see Frollo and the other elf. They're enjoying the afternoon in front of the pub as you walk back with your cloak drawn. A young man, youngish, farmer comes running into the group, asking for help. It's like, I can't find them. They're gone. I worked everywhere. My cousin's going to kill me. You have to help me. You've seen this young man before. He's one of the farmers. He has a small family and a young boy among that family. He's from the Stoutborns clan, which has quite a bit of holdings. His cousin left north to go on a pilgrimage and left his 2 young children with him. So the 3 children, these cousins, second cousins, play together. And he starts describing the fact that he searched for everywhere for these children and he can't find them. Samathis, what is your reaction to this?
I think what's probably going on is that he's in a back corner doing an arm wrestling contest with some random guy. And as soon as he hears that there's some monsters or something, you see it, everyone just sees him tense up way stronger and just smash this guy. And then just chug back a beer and pick up his sword and be like, I'm on it.
As you stand up, you hear behind you oh, damn it. You both, that's supposed to be friendly. Oh, and he just sort of grumbles and goes inside. Maybe to put his hand on water or something, some hot water that maybe will fix the strain. Frollo, you also hear what's going on. What are you going to do?
I think I set down my mug and I grab my shield and club that were leaning up against the chair I was sitting on. And I just kind of hop up. And when I stand up, I'm about the same height I was when I'm sitting down. And I kind of scuttle off after Samathis.
Celera, you have your cloak on, but your fine elven ears, which have trained to listen to both wildlife and monsters in the forest, pick up this call for help on this youngish man. Do you stop and listen? Do you move closer, or do you simply keep walking, saying, "Oh, not my business"?
Well, I guess keeping in mind that she's getting supplies, and if she knows the other 2, then she'd probably be getting supplies for the party instead of just her outpost. Taking that into consideration, I think if she's listening for that and she hears the man screaming because Sam decided to practically break somebody's arm, she might actually start to figure that the other 2 are going immediately as soon as they hear the commotion, and she might resign herself to at least go and investigate instead of, ignoring it completely.
Well, you approach the young man, the Stoutborn fellow, and he describes faintly, yes, making my wife, she's working on lunch and dinner, and she said to fetch the boys, and I couldn't find them, and he basically explains that essentially they're young, they're between the ages of 4 to 6 years old, they're about the same age. One of them, the oldest, is his son, and the 2 others are the children of his cousin. and they basically play around the farm, but they should have come in for dinner. And he basically says, "Please follow me," and he takes you to the outskirts of the village where one of the larger farmsteads is there. Seems to be a very large home. These folks seem to be well off for farmers. Not a manor house, but it is a large house. And you have your pigs, etc. And he brings you in, and the wife comes out and offers you some kind of drink. And he basically describes the situation. Usually the kids, once they do their chores, play around the fields, etc., within eyesight, but now they're nowhere to be found. What do you guys do?
Well, I think Solera would probably say something along the lines of, "I'm a ranger, not a babysitter. Find a human to find your human offspring," and would probably leave. But I think, like, even though she said that, she might, like, keep an eye out for the children in the forest and things like that.
I'd probably, like, grab her shoulder, and I'm like, "I can't kill things if I can't find where they are. Just get me there."
I think this was Sam that says this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she'd probably tell you, if you enjoy living like a human so much, find a human to do it.
I think I say, "What's so wrong with the way we live?"
Until you figure it out.
So you're having this conversation, and the poor farmer basically is both crestfallen and his jaw is open. Salira walks out. You casually, your eyes wander, and you see a set of tracks. Apparently, what's interesting about it, they seem to have been dragging something heavy. Like, you see, like, small shoe prints. Could be childlike. And apparently they were carrying something heavy behind them. Some kind of tool or something like that. Maybe too big for them.
Zalera would have found this?
Yeah. As you were walking away, it's like, I don't have time for this shit kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
Well, if she sees that, I think, the tracker in her would, and being intrigued by this mystery, not so much as, I guess, finding the children, as she would be, trying to do right, I guess. She would probably try and investigate, since, she'd probably, I think, okay. I'm trying. Let me try and back up here. Upon seeing these tracks, I think she would follow them, because despite being turned off, I guess, for lack of a better word, at the prospect of tracking down human children, she's racist that way. She would probably try and track she'd probably try and track these footprints. I think while she did that, she'd whistle for Eldar, and basically instruct him to basically scout ahead to see where the tracks lead, and she would just kind of like wander off by herself into the woods. She wouldn't give a shit if Sam and Frollo were following. She'd just be like, "Screw that, I'm doing this shit myself."
What you find interesting is the tracks do not lead to the woods. They, in fact, lead in the opposite direction. And Eldar, as you can, basically goes far out and takes a couple of minutes and then, swings back around and lands near you. And you can speak the language of Eldar. You have this connection, and describes he didn't see any human, didn't see what he calls, human chicks, around, but he did see an old, gnarled, tree. Might have been an ancient elm of some sort that seemed to have been, the way he describes it is like hit by skyfire. And it seems to be in the general direction of the tracks. Frollo and Sam, you're seeing this conversation, which is to you is nothing new. You see that the Elven Ranger, Celera, often talks to this hawk. Of what and what are they talking to each other, you have no idea, but it seems to be an animated discussion. While the wife is trying to calm her husband and still imploring you to find a way to find the children.
I think while we're watching this, I just sort of like lean down to the farmer and like tap on his shoulder and like point him to look at her. And I'm like, see, she acts all tough, but she's already hooked. She's already looking for him.
Well, actually, you have to do it up. You're a halfling, and the farmer is a.
No, I'm the elf.
Oh, you're the elf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, even he's getting confused by your guys' voices. It's not just me.
It happens. Don't worry about it. So you do that, and the farmer sort of sighs and says, "Oh, thank you very much. Hope you can help him. My cousin's going to kill me, children, and my boy."
See, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I think like if with Zal's really keen hearing, if she heard him say that, she'd probably like in between this conversation she's having with this falcon, like that whole commune with nature thing, she'd probably like spare just a second to toss him like this knifey glare before like resuming this conversation. Like, I'm gonna slit your throat while you're sleeping, bastard.
He's not trying to make it heard, but he's definitely not a quiet person.
Oh, I kind of had that figured already. Elven man whore.
Yeah, she doesn't like it, and he doesn't care. That sums up the situation nicely. Caliborn, you're seeing all of this. Club at the ready, and what do you do?
Yeah, so I think as any good halfling would do, I pulled out like maybe like a pie that I had gotten at the inn or something, and my plan is to go and set it somewhere so that the halfling children will see it and just come to us.
Well, these are humans.
Oh, humans. Okay. Well, then in that case, I just eat the pie while I'm contemplating what to do or where these humans could have gone. I'm a little bit puzzled as to human culture.
Mm-hmm. Crap. Food doesn't work well as human bait. What do humans get attracted by?
His second dinner.
But Celera, now that you had this discussion and had these signs given to you by the Falcon, by Eldo the Falcon, do you continue to follow the tracks?
Yeah, because I think one thing that stood out a lot to Zalera was Eldar's use of the words Skyfire, which, could mean any number of things. So I think, as much as she dislikes the idea of finding human children, she'd be more intrigued by the mystery of it all and, doing right and bringing the jerks to justice, more or less, even if they don't actually see court. The
justice of the wood.
She's got a bow and arrow for a reason. Anyway, so I think she'd kind of, leaving, kind of like, if you can keep up, then you're with me. If you can't, well, I'm going by myself type mentality. She'd just start darting off by herself to follow the tracks.
Yeah, she definitely follows after.
Yeah, I think Frollo, he's halfway through the pie, and he, turns, there's, a bit of crust hanging off his lip, and he's looking between his club and the pie, and then he just stuffs the rest of the pie into his mouth, grabs his club, and runs off after you guys.
So I was actually wondering if he was going to either do that or hand the old man the pie. Be like, here.
You leave the Stoutborn farm behind, the young couple clutching to each other, hoping that you will bring their children back. That was the end of part 1 of the episode. As always, if you like this or any video on my channel, please comment and subscribe, and we will see you when we see you. Good night.